my beautiful souls, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm gonna give you guys kind of story time, but not really. I really just want to talk about my psychedelic trips and the good parts and the bad parts. As I am embarking in psychedelic coaching and being that guide for other people throughout their trips, I really wanted to take some time to share my experiences and just share my experiences. So I've done LSD, also known as acid, about 5 times, and I've done shrooms about 4 times. And those are really the only psychedelics that I have ever tried. I have tried other drugs, and yeah, that was each in their own thing. I have never really tapped into any of those again besides the experience. I've always been very curious and interesting in the drug world and the experiences that things provide. So I did try a couple of things, but then after growing and learning, I decided not to really indulge in those types of things anymore, but I will still tap into psychedelics here and there. But yeah, so to get started, I'm gonna talk about LSD first. So I am a very, very, very big advocate for LSD. I know a lot of people don't think that it's natural or that it's gonna get you crazy, make you be crazy or anything in that sense, but I have really enjoyed my LSD trips a lot, even more than my shrooms trip, which is psilocybin. I'm so sorry. But yeah, so the first time that I ever tried LSD was not the smartest way to try it. I was on a date with this guy. It was our first time ever meeting each other. And he was like, I don't know how the topic was brought up, but he told me that he had some, and I was like, oh, I would love to try it. He ended up giving me a quarter of it. So LSD is like a tab, so it's literally like a square, and he gave me like the corner of the square. It was just like a quarter of it. And then we ended up going to the park, and I had the absolute best time ever. It was such a wonderful experience. We went to the park. We ended up smoking weed in the middle of our trip while we were at the park, and we laid on the grass, and we just were kind of looking up, and everything, the clouds just looked spectacular. Anything that I could imagine, I was able to see. So if I wanted the clouds to look like a bunny hopping, it was a bunny hopping, and it was such an amazing experience. The visuals are just like chef's kiss. And yeah, it was really fun, and it was really beautiful. And he ended up showing me LSD by A$AP Rocky, which ended up being a tradition that I do now every time I take LSD, is I always watch that music video. But it was a really beautiful experience. I really enjoyed it. I ended up coming back home and really knocking out. But yeah, and then I tapped into it a couple more times after that. I think the second time I did it was with a coworker of mine, and it was the best experience ever. So let me just step back real quick. It was oh, okay, yeah, 5 times. Yeah, so then I ended up doing it with a coworker. I would go as far as to say that was probably my best and favorite trip ever. We took it right before we were closing the restaurant, and we took it when we were close to finishing, so that it would start hitting us by the time that we got to my house, because I lived about 5-6 minutes away from work. We took it there. we start feeling it a little bit sooner, and we feel basically drunk, I would describe it, or at least that's how I felt. I felt a little bit drunk. We were outside of the job, and we lost the tab, so we ended up buying more. I think we only took half a tab each, because we ended up buying a couple of it because we were going to try it as a group, like me and our coworkers. But we wanted to just experience, like, we had it, we were like, let's do it. So we took a half. We ended up losing it. It was like a whole thing, but it was so funny. We did disturb a couple people because we were like, fuck, did we forget it inside the store? And like the people who open the store, like, what are they gonna think when they find it? So that it was like a whole shebang, and we were like struggling to open the door, and it was a whole thing, but it was so funny. It ended up hitting before we were able to go to my house, so we were like tripping. Whatever, we go to my house, we're here. My coworker who I did it with had a truck, so at first we were in her truck smoking, and we were smoking, and then we were listening to music. And I really remember, and I have this on video, I remember us listening to Car Radio by 21 Pilots, and it was the best like experience ever. I could just feel every beat. We were moving, we were dancing, we were having such a great and beautiful time. It was so amazing. We ended up getting off the truck and going on top of it to see the stars. And it was like in that moment that it became really important for me to like take nature into accountability when I'm doing my trips. So we were outside, we were still listening to music, and we were just looking at the sky, and we were looking at the stars, and I was just like, it was just beautiful. I can't describe it as anything but. And yeah, we were just listening to music, looking at the stars, talking, laughing, really just enjoying vibes. It was so great. So then we ended up taking it again with the rest of our coworkers, and that was an interesting experience. So typically for LSD, you don't sleep. You're on this trip for about 12 hours. For some reason, I'm able to sleep almost every single time, because I don't know, I guess I just have control of myself. I'm not sure, but every single time that I've taken any psychedelic, I'm always like, okay, I'm tired, I'm gonna go to sleep now, and then I go to sleep. So the 12 hours have never really affected me ever, except for my third trip, which I ended up taking with my with the group of my coworkers. It was really good, but it wasn't really good. It was a good trip, but it was something that was very different from my last two. And this was the first time that I really realized that set and setting were really important. So we were still at my house, which was great because I felt safe, but it was at some point, like, the vibes were just different. And I'm not sure if it was like, just as a collective, I guess we weren't all vibing. The girl who I had taken the trip beforehand, she was a lot more separate than us, and that was cool, but it definitely like brought up some weird vibes. And then typically when you do trips with other people, there is a very large chance that you will sync in trips. So kind of what that looks like is you and this other person will potentially be seeing the same things, feeling the same things, and just kind of being in like your own little, like, no one else is here, it's just you and me, and we're like in sync, and we're just in it together. And that happened with one of my coworkers and I, and it was great. Like, it made sense because me and her were really close at the time. But another coworker that was there got up, and I guess there was some, like, I'm not sure, it looked like I don't know what was happening, but something happened. It was until later on that I found out that she wanted to fight me. During that, I literally, like, I kid you not, I did not find that out until like about a month or a month and a half later. Like, I just thought she was tripping out or something. But my other coworker who was there was like, oh no, she wanted to fight you. And I was like, what? Like, where the fuck did that come from? So then we were, it was like a whole thing, and we were able to get back into the vibe, and we were talking and we were fine. But that was the only time that I was not able to sleep. But that was also the time where I realized that I had to stop talking to the guy who introduced me to LSD. And that was like my first time really becoming aware that you receive things when you're in psychedelic trips. So the previous one, I was, more in tune with nature. I was like feeling very alive, very great, but I didn't really think that I received anything until the next one, where I was with the collective and we were just kind of all talking, and for some reason I thought about this guy, and I thought about him and my stomach sunk, and I was just like not feeling good. And I was just like, oh no, I need to stop talking to him. Like, that literally happened. Like, I was in the middle of a trip, we were in my room, and I was like I wanted to throw up. I was like, I need to stop talking to this man. And then ever since then, I literally ghosted him, never texted, nothing. Like, I never spoke to that man ever again since then. But that was when I was realizing that during these psychedelic trips, things that you don't think about get brought up, and you start realizing things. So that was my third. That has to be my least favorite. Probably my least favorite LSD trip, not my least favorite trip overall. So yeah, and then I moved on, and I ended up taking a trip with. This was like months prior. I mean, not prior, months afterwards, I did another, because after that, it was just kind of like, I felt like I needed a break, because it wasn't as enjoyable as my other ones were. So I was just like, okay, and speaking now, those group of girls are no longer my friends. There's no bad blood between us, but it definitely, where I am now, I am aware of, why those vibes were there and why that energy was there. So that was very interesting to reflect on where I am now. So yeah, so then I took LSD again months after, and this is before I've ever taken like any psilocybin or anything like that. I was really sticking to LSD for a while. So then I took LSD again with my friend and her boyfriend. Again, always at my house. I always take it at my house because set and setting is really important, and I've always felt really, really safe at my house. First, like, I always have been. I've never really been scared of my parents finding out that I was doing drugs or anything. Yes, I would get in trouble, but I knew they would help me out, so I wasn't scared. And then I also had my brothers who were relative to the drug world, so I just felt really, really safe at my house. And I invite them over, they come. This was the time where I was able to roll my first blunt on acid, on LSD. The one with the group, all of us tried to roll, none of us could. So when you're on LSD, your vision gets like really, I don't know. For example, when we were in that collective, my dogs were outside with us. Well, one of them went outside with us. And he left, and I was like trying to get him. Keep in mind, I'm literally on acid. We were all in the front of my house where the road was. It was at night. I've always taken it at night. But yeah, we were all in the front. So then I get up and I'm like trying to go get my dog. And I kid you not, I take about like four or five steps, and I think that I walked a mile. I literally felt like I was on the other side of the street. And I was like, my dog ends up coming back to me, and I was just like, oh my God. And it was really funny. Like, it wasn't, but and like, one thing that I will say about acid that I've experienced is that you come in and out. So like, there's moments where you're like really like tripping, and you're like, whoa, like you're seeing things, and that lasts for a couple of minutes, and then you get back into reality, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm in my house, I'm in my front yard, we're my friends, there's people in this world, we can't be loud. And then I go back, and now I'm tripping, and I'm like doing like that. So it's always like that, for me at least, my experiences with it, which I think it's amazing because it helps me out not be tripping the whole time. Like, I get sent back into reality every couple of minutes. So I know what the fuck I'm doing, I know where I'm at, and I don't feel unsafe or anything. So that's something that I've really, really enjoyed when it comes to LSD. Is that the visuals are a lot better than mushrooms, and I'm still not totally out of it. Like, I get sent back. And that's really how it feels. It feels like you get sent back. So, yeah, I invite them over. This is my first time. I rolled a blunt on acid, and I was just so proud of myself. It's still one of, like, the greatest things that I'm proud of, because I don't think you guys understand how difficult that is when your visuals are impaired. Like, there's certain times where you, like, it's, you know how they say, like, oh, you see the flower and you see it breathing? Like, that's how it is. So I was looking at this weed and I was just like, it's moving, like it's alive. Like, oh my God, like this is a live being. And then imagine rolling that as you're seeing it breathe and move, and you're like, you know, so it's very difficult, but I did it because I'm just a G like that. Anyways, I do this trip we're like, and this time we go to my backyard. They felt safe for being in my backyard. I was like, okay, cool. We're outside and we're looking at the sky. Me and my friend, we get synced into the same trip, and that was beautiful. We shared a lot of the same experiences. It was a really amazing trip. This one was a lot more in tune with space and stars and stuff, so I was able to like be a star and like be out there in space and also come back, and the visual was just amazing and the song choices were amazing, and it was the first time that I had ever listened to Ghost Town 2, and I was just like, oh my God, like what even is life? This is so beautiful. And it's so crazy because this is before I was ever awakened or my spirituality had ever even began. So it was like the closest thing, like now where I am now, I'm like, oh, I could totally feel that in a much different way now. But that back then, like that was just the closest thing I could get to nature and to what felt like really close to home and close to what's out there. So I always loved using it to, you know, connect to nature, to connect to the outside world, to get messages received. And every single time after that time where I was like, oh, okay, like I can't speak to that guy, I would discover something within every trip afterwards. And it would typically be with something that was becoming problematic in my life that I wasn't really thinking about, or that I wasn't setting a lot of intention or purpose in discovering. So that would happen. That was a beautiful. And then my last trip was with my friend. She was living with us at the time, and we did it, and that was really, really great too. Again, every time, LSD by A$AP Rocky. We watched Enjoy Your Trip. It was like a documentary on Netflix about LSD. And yeah, we just spent a lot of time there. I also fell asleep. Like, I fell asleep on all of these. And I would then look back and I would feel so bad. So, like, on my friend and her boyfriend, like, I fell asleep on them. On her, I fell asleep on her. Like, I would always fall asleep. And I would just, like, I would wake up, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm sorry I left y'all. Because I did. Like, I knocked out. And even when I knocked out, I had a bit of visuals. And then I, like, really went to sleep. So, yeah. Those were my experiences with LSD. They were all still very, very great and wonderful. I haven't tried it ever since. Not because I'm afraid or anything. I mean, for a long time I was, because I was like, oh, I don't want to discover something that I'm like, you know, suppressing, or I don't want to know what's about to come up, because a lot of times the things that would come up are things that I didn't want to know, or things that I didn't want to conclude. So even like for the guy, an example, I didn't want to stop talking to him, but it was just something that I intuitively knew, and I was just like, ooh, okay. So then later on, after doing research about psychedelics and stuff, I figured out that when you're on a psychedelic trance, your subconscious, there's like it's kind of like a wall. There's like a wall between your conscious and your subconscious. So when you're on psychedelics, all the walls come down, and now you're just conscious. So everything that's been like on the back of your head, or everything that you try not to think about, or all the things that you suppress, or the things that you're truly not trying not to think about, it gets brought back up. And you're able to think about it in a much calmer, in a much more relaxed, in a much more joyous mindset. which is now going to bring me back, which is now going to take me to my shroom experiences. So the first time that I tried shrooms, which is also called psilocybin, it was not that great. I only took a little bit, but at the time I was with my partner and we were having a conversation, and there was something that she wanted to discuss that I didn't want to discuss, and she was nagging on it a little bit too much, which then caused me to have a panic attack on psilocybin, which is not fun at all. And whatever, I was able to get over, we went through it. Thankfully, I did not take a lot, so it wasn't like really traumatic, but I was just like, I don't know if I like psilocybin. I was just like, I don't know if this is going to be something that I'm going to consume again. And then I ended up taking it 4 times, so let me think about what were my 4 times. I know it was that time, and then I had that time, and then I had that time, and then I had that. Okay, so then I take it again on a chocolate bar, and this time I didn't really feel anything. When I took it this time, it was a ruse to try to feel something. My brother had recently passed away, so I was just consuming a lot of drugs to try to feel something because I was in this numb state. I didn't end up necessarily feeling anything when I took it. I just really fell asleep. So that was my second time, and then after that happened, I was just like, okay, I don't think psilocybin is really all that. I was just like, okay. But then I took it 2 more times, and those 2 more times really, really made it special and magical, and now psilocybin has a place in my heart forever. The next time that I take it is the same with my partner, the one who had taken it with the first time. She didn't take it, only I did. And then this time we took it together. Unfortunately, she didn't really feel that much, but I did. Initially it felt like I was just drunk. I just felt like I was drunk. I was just everything was funny, giggly. I was just in a really good mood. And then it started getting a little bit more deep. Again, all of these, the first time I took shrooms, it was not at my house. The last 3 times that I took it, it was at my house. So this was my 3rd time consuming it with my partner. We were at my house, and it was really, really great. It was a really nice experience, and the most memorable one that I've yet to have when taking psychedelics. So I took about 2.5 grams, I think. And yeah, I took about 2.5 grams, or maybe 1.5, because we were trying to be very intentional with it being a spiritual journey as opposed to tripping out. So I think we took 1.5. In the middle of my trip, I start seeing scary faces, scary movie faces. So those, and monsters and stuff. And obviously when you're on psychedelics, you do not want to be seeing those things because you're like, fuck, I'm tripping. I'm tripping out. I'm going to have a bad trip. You just don't really think about wanting to think about those things. So I tried to ignore those faces for as much as I possibly could. But the more I tried to ignore them, the more they would come up. So then finally, I was just like, okay. And this was actually really recent. This was about, I think this was early. So right now we are in March 2023. I think that trip I took on October 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And by that time, I've already gone really through my spiritual awakening, my enlightenment. So I was a little bit more in tune with earth, with my intuition, with myself, with my ego mind, with my, myself. So I was in a much better mental state when I took this trip. And I kind of just look at the faces and I'm like, okay, show me what you need to show me. And there's this episode on Avatar where he has to go talk to a god. I think it's a god. I think it's a spirit guide or something. But in order to receive something, but in order to receive it, he couldn't show any emotion. And if he did show emotion, the god would steal his face and his soul, and the world was doomed, basically. So that's kind of how I felt. I felt like, okay, I want you to show me what you need to show me, but I could not show any emotion, because if I do, I'm gonna be taken down on a very dark loop. So I tell them that, and they start taking me down this staircase, going down into like this black hole. So I just remember it was like a square, dark, and the stairs were leading down to that square. And there was like an opening. It was like open on this side, but on this side there was a wall. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Truman Show, I think that's what it's called, where he's going up the stairs, and then there's like a door, and like there's a wall, the stairs are connected to the wall, and then there's the door, but then the other side is like completely open, and he keeps falling like that. It was like that, but opposite. So the stairs are going down, there's a wall attached, and everything else was open. So on this wall, it was just like the scary faces, like on the wall consistently. So I'm like going down, and as I'm going down, I hear my brother's voice, and I get scared, and I show emotion, and I immediately start thinking, fuck, is my brother not okay? Fuck, are they about to show me that he's in hell? Fuck, what am I about to see? Is my brother in trouble? And so as these thoughts are coming rushing in, I literally stop going down the stairs. I start going faster down, because I'm like trying to get to my brother. I stop, and I turn to them, and I say, fuck you. I say, fuck you. How dare you use my brother to try to lure me in? I already told you that I was willing to go down and for you to show me what you need to show me. Fuck you for using my brother on that. And I get back up, and I walk up. And that to me, because I remembered intuitively that my brother is okay, that he is in a better space, and that he is not in trouble, and that he's okay. So when I remembered that intuitively, I got upset, and I look at these faces, and I'm like, fuck you. So I get back up, and I continue the rest of my trip pretty good, pretty normal. I enjoy the rest of my experiences. I'm laughing, I'm talking to my brother, I'm talking to my partner at the time. It was a really, really good trip. But what I gathered from that was a test of my faith. That was a test in my faith that my brother is okay, and that was a test on my faith in myself and who I am and what I'm willing to get to me and what I'm willing to be vulnerable with and things in that sense. So that really was a test that I felt so happy and proud that I had passed. Because I was like, no, like, you guys are not going to make me doubt my faith and doubt in myself and doubt that my brother is not okay. And that's what I gathered from that trip. And it was really, really beautiful. And I'm really happy too, because that could have easily led anyone to have a very, very bad and traumatic trip. So the fact that I was able to handle that with such, I'm not going to say grace, because I did end up saying, like, telling them fuck you, but you know, I got back up the stairs and I continued the rest of my trip, and it was great. It was fine. It was perfect. So that was my third experience with psilocybin, and it was beautiful, and I really, really loved that. So I'm editing the video, and I just wanted to clarify that, like, the stairs and the whole thing is a visual. So I don't really remember if my eyes were closed or open, but I was like in that. But like physically, I was laying outside in my backyard. So like it wasn't like an actual place that I went to, but spiritually I did. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I can, as I'm like listening and hearing and reviewing, I can easily see how it can like make you think that I was like taken into this whole other place. Like, no, physically my body was in my backyard, like laying down outside, but mentally and spiritually I was somewhere else. And then I got back into my body and my reality and my house. But yeah, just wanted to clarify that, because I have not been the same since. I now always know that I have faith in myself, which is a beautiful thing to know. So it's kind of like, dang, you need to take shrooms to know that, but hey, each their own. And thanks to that trip, I was able to really find faith in myself in an internal way. So that was really, really nice. And then my last trip that I've taken was actually last month in February, so about like a month ago. I took it with my friend here at my house. This was the first time I've ever done a psychedelic during the day. And this time it was not this time, but like this one was really, really beautiful. We didn't have the same trip at all, but we shared like beautiful experiences in each other's presence and energy, and I think that really, really like made a difference. But I ended up, like, a lot of my fears were being present. So one of them was the fact that my parents are going to die one day. And I was crying hysterically because I was just like, oh my God, like, my parents are going to become old and they're going to, like, die, and I'm not going to have my parents for the rest of my life, and I'm going to move out, and I'm becoming an adult, and, like, my parents are getting older, like, I'm getting older, that means my parents are getting older, and I'm crying because I'm like, oh my God, my parents are going to die one day. And then right after as I'm crying, I start to laugh because I'm like, okay, but they're not dead yet. Like, why are you stealing sadness from the future right now? And then I was like, your grandpa's not even dead. Like, he's in his 90s and he's not even dead. Why are you crying about your 40-year-old parents dying? Like, so I start laughing, and that ended up, like, being very consistent throughout my trips. I had, like, 4 of those moments. So it started off with, like, my parents, and then I started thinking about my dogs, because my dogs were out there as I was, like, on my trip. They were outside with me. I started thinking about them, and I started thinking about the life that I wanted to give them, and I was just like, oh my God. At the time, I was going to purchase a house and move out, and yeah, be in a house and move out. And then I was just like, that's not the life I want to give my dogs. Like, my dogs were, like, exploring and, like, finding lizards and stuff, and I was like, no, they should be in the wild. And I was like, I want to be in the wild too. Like, and so that really solidified my want to do, like, van life very soon, and start exploring the world and start exploring different places, and knowing that I want to do that with my dogs and show them the world as well. And then I was just kind of like, well, okay, I need to get them trained sooner because I need to make sure that they're safe while we're out here going on hikes and doing all these things. So those are the things that came up during the shrooms. But I was just like, okay, like, I want to provide my dogs the best life I possibly can. And that's not buying a house and settling down at 19 years old. So that was the second thing that had came to life. And it was just little things like those that were coming, like, to me, that come to me when I'm doing these psychedelic trips. And I think as I become more spiritual and more enlightened, things are have, like, a lot better resolution, and they're a lot more clear. So there was this time I was looking at the clouds, and the clouds started transforming into Mayan warriors, which are natives to the Mexican culture. And he starts talking to me, this Mayan warrior. He's like talking to me. He's like, you are Mexican. You have Mexican hands. And I remember I'm like laughing, looking at my hands, and I'm like, these are Mexican hands? Like, these are the hands of warriors? Like, what? My hands are tiny. They're like fragile little babies. Like, what are you talking about? And he was like, no, you can do this. Like, you are a warrior. There's nothing you can't accomplish. Like, you have all your ancestors, all of us right here, right behind you. Like, there is nothing you can't do. You are a warrior. You are Mexican. And I was like, sir, yes, sir. But it was a really beautiful moment. It was funny because I was just like, okay. But I was like, it was really, really cool. And I felt intuitively that that was my ancestors kind of speaking to me and assuring me that I am in the right place in my life, and that I'm doing the right things, and that I'm really embodying our culture and our nature, and really finding peace within myself, within natural resources, which is something that our natives have always done. So those are the little things that come up as you're taking, like, psychedelic trips, at least for me. So that's why I've been a very, very large advocate for psychedelic trips and for people doing them and experiencing them. And although I'm aware that it's not for everyone, the only reason why I think it's not for everyone is because not everyone has the mindset or the mentality ready to consume it. Because not everyone can be open to what they're going to receive, and that will send people into a bad trip. So when you hear stories about like people jump off like buildings, or they kill themselves, or like, those are things in their subconscious mind. Like, it's not the drug that's inducing them to do those things. It's their own mindsets and their own beliefs that have already been there. It's just this drug who are bringing awareness to it. And that is what incites things. So it's not like I've never, but like, I wouldn't be an advocate for these things if I really thought that they were a danger to society. I just think that setting is very important. Mindset is really, really important. And being in the proper, like, everything is important. So, whenever, like, and that's why anytime anyone comes to me and they're like, oh, like, what, like, that's crazy, like, you're a crackhead, I try to guide them to the scientific. There's so many documentaries, there's so many things out into the public, out into the world, scientific things, scientific facts backing up what psilocybin does, what's not even psilocybin, psychedelics does to a person. So I try to, like, gear them there, because I'm like, before you call someone a crackhead, or before you think about something being crack, you know, get the research and really figure out what it is. And maybe it's not for you, that's okay too, but really understand what it is before you make a decision based off of it. And there's moments and there's times where people just don't care. They're too, you know, they have a blockage, they don't want to know, and that's okay too. But for me personally, I just don't ever see myself sitting down and telling someone like psychedelics are bad. I just don't. And I think now as a society, and we're, you know, getting closer to trying to find ourselves, to trying to heal, to trying to grow, these things are being brought to light. And it's really important for me that they are being guided, or they have the proper information about these things before they consume these psychedelics, because that's when accidents would happen, when it just wasn't with the right intention. So I'm like, the reason why I really wanted to come up here and talk about my story was, to talk about my story with my psychedelics, but also to kind of bring light into a very scary topic, to something that people don't really like to think about or talk about, or have an idea or belief on something that they don't really know all of the information on. So that's my story, my likes and dislikes, and the things that I've enjoyed about the psychedelic world and the psychedelic experiences that I've had. And I don't encourage anyone to do so or not to do so. But if you ever do tap into that world, I am excited for you. And I would love to know how your experiences have been, and what you've learned, and what you've been able to feel throughout those moments. But I'm an advocate for psychedelics. I think they're amazing. I think that they've been amazing for me. Is it for everyone? Probably not. Maybe not. I don't think so. I don't know. I also understand too that my opinions and my ideas of things will always change. They're never constant, and they're never permanent, which I'm very grateful for. And I'm always open to receive and listen to other perspectives. So if anyone out here is a non-advocate for psychedelics, I would love to hear more about that. But that has been my experiences. So that's my story time on my trips. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know this is a lot longer video, but that's just what I wanted to share today. Thank you guys for coming, for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you enjoyed any of the trips, if you have any questions, or if you want to personally reach out for, me being able to help you get a very nice guided psychedelic trip, or what I can be of use to you and value. I'm always open to that as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Have a great and amazing rest of your day. I love you so very much, and yeah, see you soon.